So we're going to take a look at the three types of rhetorical appeals that you would use in persuasion and look at what they are, how they're used, and then some tips for how we can use them overall in persuasive writing. So the first one that we have would be ethos, and ethos is going to be credibility or expert. So I use the icon for a ninja just because when we talk about experts, ninjas are experts at things like stealth and weaponry and disguising and deception and all that. So think ethos, think expert. So we're going to have some kind of expert opinion. We're working on establishing an authority on something. So if you are an authority on the subject, you can use that to establish some ethos at the beginning that you know what you're talking about. We're also looking at character. So a good, upstanding, honest person would connect to some of this ethos to make them more trustworthy, more credible. Credibility is part of an ethos argument as well. Just looking at different ways of establishing yourself or your sources as credible sources of information. So, if you're using some research and citing information from a website or something, something that is an established website is going to be a lot more credible than like a random person's blog necessarily. Expert opinions are also a part of an ethos appeal. So if you can pull in quotes from experts and all of that. And then a lot of the overall kind of idea with ethos is this idea of shared value. So if you can connect to your audience in a way that has some shared values, you're going to establish some ethos there. You see this a lot in election stuff. You'll see candidates who are trying to appeal to common values that they have with the voters to get them to vote for them. And then finally, something like ethics can play into this as well, where we're looking at the ethical way to do something. So, for example, if any of y'all watch basketball, you know that Shaq and Charles Barkley are analysts for a lot of NBA stuff. And what you would look at is, well, why are they? They don't have any kind of broadcasting background, but what they are is experts in the game of basketball. And so, by pulling the two of those in, it lends more credibility to the stuff being said on those shows because they've played in the league, they understand it, they know what they're talking about. So that establishes them as, credible sources of information. Plus, they're also just entertaining to watch. Now, next is pathos. And I use the icon of a paintbrush as pathos because pathos is emotional appeal. And so what we want to look at is like passion would be the connection there. So think pathos, passion, use that P connection there. And I use the paintbrush because art, whether it's visual art, music, or anything like that, art tends to connect a lot with emotions. So you can kind of keep that in mind. Pathos equaling passions. When you create art, you're expressing your passion. So the biggest thing here is we're looking at emotion, connecting with emotion in any kind of way. So I might be trying to gain sympathy from my audience. I might be trying to get them to go back to a nostalgic time in their life. I might be trying to get a rise out of them and get them angry in order to act. But all of those are ways that I'm connecting to emotions, trying to persuade them. In order to do this, you definitely want to use very descriptive, very visual language. So, using a lot of that imagery, bringing on all the senses, describing something really well creates some of that emotion in all that. Visual images are also a really good thing to use when you're trying to connect to your audience's emotions. So, if I take a picture like this and I'm trying to get people and persuade them to act and help uh, people who are starving all over the world, if I show a picture like this, cute little girl who definitely looks hungry, looks like she hasn't been taken care of. And so using that picture helps to establish a little bit of sympathy in order to get my audience to act. Now, the final one is logos. Logos is logic, and I used just a beaker icon here just as a reminder of using logic and reason. So when you are looking at that, think logos, think logic. Science and math use a lot of logic in what they do. So when I think that, I think the science speaker. So we're looking at logic and reason in what we're doing, making logical connections, making logical statements. So we'll use things like facts and statistics that you can't deny a fact. You can't really deny a statistic as far as whether or not it's true. Any kind of data that you can bring in to help support your point. And also, part of logos is making logical connections. Think something like an if then statement. If this is true, then this is the result, or some type of cause and effect. If we continue to do this, then this will be the logical result of that. So a lot of people kind of forget that logical connection aspect of it being logos. So you can use that kind of stuff, but again, you don't want to be overly reliable because a lot of times facts and statistics and things like that can be skewed. So might get an inaccurate portrayal of something. So if I take something like this chart talking about the average global temperature by year, then you can look that I'm using some facts and statistics and data to show how it is increasing over the years to help kind of support that point. Now, think about using this stuff in your argument, some tips to help you out with that. So, one, you want to use all three in your argument. You don't want to just rely on data and facts and statistics, or you don't want to just rely on emotion because that it's not going to present a strong, persuasive argument. You want to use all three of them all integrated together throughout. But at the same time, you want to focus on the audience. Who is it that you're talking to? What is going to convince them more than the others? So if you're talking to, let's say, a group of scientists, you're going to definitely want to establish some ethos, some credibility, but then you're also going to want to rely pretty heavily on facts and statistics because something like a group of scientists, they're just looking at the logical stuff. So emotional appeal is probably not going to be a great way to get them on board. It might be a good way to kind of solidify some of the points that you're making. So as you are putting together your persuasive arguments, just keep in mind the difference between all these three, the purpose that you would use them for, and work on using them a lot more effectively.